Hey guys, Frank here. Today we'll check out some stories from /AskReddit. Here's the first. What's the wildest mouth rotor check that there is couldn't cash moment you've ever seen? Waiting in line to pay cover at a bar and the exit doors were right beside us. Big double steel doors with a solid metal jam divider in between them. A guy was being escorted out by two bouncers. He was screaming that once they got him outside, they'd better run because he was gonna kick both their asses at once. He slammed a hand into each door to throw them open, smashing his face off the metal divider, knocking himself out cold. One of the greatest things I ever saw. My older brother was drunk and picked a fight with what turned out to be one of British Columbia's top 10 kickboxers. Even drunk, the guy knew not to go for the easy knockout. He ducked my brother up with body blows before he got bored and laid him out. It is one of my favorite memories. At a bar in college on Halloween weekend, probably 2006 or 07, I saw a guy dressed up as a Spartan from the movie 300 talk shit to a bouncer. Bouncer picked him up and used his face to open the door and throw him into the alley. In high school, a bunch of us were hanging out in the parking lot, wondering if we should bother entering an all-ages party. A car with two guys and two girls pulled up and honked the horn. One of the guys, who was with someone who happened to know someone from our group, was standing in the way and the guy honked again. Realizing his mistake, he moved and said he was sorry. The driver said, "Get the frick out the way next time," clearly trying to impress his dates. The guy chuckled and said, "I'm not afraid of you." The driver screeched to a halt, put the car in park, leapt out of the car, got into some karate stance, and started throwing kicks. One of which was caught, and he was thrown to the ground where he proceeded to get a much-deserved swooping. I can take him me seconds before getting absolutely mopped by a medium-large Samoan fella. High school. A girl and I were about to fight. Face-to-face screaming. She turned threw her books at the wall and then kinda windmilled her purse and flung two at the wall. It broke open and I burst into laughter. It just caught me by surprise and felt ridiculous. Got my ass kicked pretty soundly. Learn never ever laugh in a fight. LOL. Supervisor kept claiming credit for one of his employees' ideas. One day management wants the supervisor to explain one of these ideas, which would save the company a silly amount of money, and he claimed was his own. He asked for the employee to help him describe the formula and how to implement it, and the employee said, "No, I'd like to see you describe this, it was brilliant." Supervisor was let go that day. Sadly, the employee with all the ideas never was truly compensated. Saw a dude get jumped by about 30 people in a bar when he called a woman an N-word lover and slapped her. He ran to a restaurant a couple blocks away before cops came. The woman beat his ass in the Waffle House parking lot. If I wanna sniff glue, I'm gonna sniff glue. 20 years ago, maybe more. Dude was shoving around his grandpa. I presume grandpa looked seriously old and the skin was that sort of no longer yellow banana look that suggested they didn't have many years left on the uptown street. I read later that dude got arrested while raging, kicked out a rear window of the police car, and never heard anything about them since, but pretty sure dude died in prison. Do not sniff glue, people. It was a thing. Hopefully it will never ever be a thing again. Ronda Rousey vs Amanda Nunes. Nunes smashed her in less than a minute. The ship-talkingest bully in HS liked to bully everyone. His name is Brent, because frick him. By the time he was a junior, he starts picking on a freshman, who is a multi-level black belt. Freshman is calm, but has had enough. The two decide on a place, day and time, and before that, Brent has to say how practicing martial arts isn't the same as fighting. I wish I saw it, but much of the school did because wanted to watch Brent lose, because frick Brent. Very quickly, Brent is in a chokehold and loses consciousness in front of everybody as he gently lets him down on the pavement. The promises my wife makes between her second and third glasses of wine on any given night out. Not mine, but my dad's story. He said that one time in his youth, he was cutting through a park in a bad neighborhood when a local gang started chasing him. He said a couple of the big bruisers got tired quickly and dropped out of the chase. Then the others one by one all dropped out except for one last gang member, a guy even smaller than my father. So my dad said he turned around and punched the kid in the mouth. He got in several more licks before the other kids realized what was happening and started running after him again. He said he was laughing while he got away. I wrote that check. Or me and my friend did. We were camping at a lake and we were sitting on the beach watching some girls playing in the water. We didn't even approach them. A while goes by and two guys walk up to us and say that those girls say you are harassing them. Well, I did judo and was wearing a tournament t-shirt, and my friend was huge for his age. Almost 6 foot at 14. So we stood up and decided to act tough. That's when one of them flashed a gun and said, "I will shoot you," totally calm. We sat back down, explained that we hadn't even talked to those girls and kept our heads on a swivel the rest of the trip. Edit, a few people have commented on flashing a gun at teens. I think I should clarify they were also teens, the girls and boys. Maybe a couple years older. My stepdad said the N-word to a car packed full of black dudes at our apartment complex one night when they kept honking the horn at him to hurry up at the gate. Watched that man get jumped. Ship was crazy. Here's story 2. Those alive and old enough to remember during 9/11, what was the worst moment on that day? The second tower being hit and the sudden realization that it was a deliberate attack. It was actually very scary to watch. The firefighters wore devices that would beep if it didn't sense any movement for a set period of time. There was a clip of an emergency worker walking through the rubble and you could hear what sounded like dozens of those devices beeping. That has stuck with me more than anything else from that day. Watching the people jump on live TV. Not knowing where my dad was for hours and hours. Thankfully he was okay. Seeing people jump to their deaths to avoid being burned alive. I was at work. Air traffic controller. It was like a 6-hour panic attack. It'll always be the jumpers, the women holding her dress down as she jumped to her death. People holding hands as they jumped to their deaths, and terrified firefighters. Edit, this one stuck in my mind as well. Kevin Cosgrove stuck above the fire in one of the towers on the phone with EMS. Warning NSFL. I was a senior in high school at the time. My dad was in the National Guard. I left school and as I walked into the front door of our house, I saw my dad in his BDUs with his bags packed ready to go. He was sitting on the couch watching the news waiting for the call. I asked him, "What's going to happen?" He replied, "I don't know." The look of terror in his eyes I'll never forget. Moments later the house phone rings. "Yes sir, on my way sir, thank you." He hangs up the phone and says to me, "I gotta go honey." This moment will live with me forever. I was so afraid that I would never see him again. You can tell he was concerned not only for his fate but for his families and for the country. Knowing something has changed for the worse in our world. The 90s were so full of hope and excitement for the future, and it's just seemed to get sad after that horrible day. The moment of impact on the second tower. That's when it was 100% confirmed we were under attack. Definitely realizing the little specks were people jumping because that was preferable to what was happening to them. Ship still gets me, and I was in high school. There was also the worry that there were more attacks coming over the course of the day. Once there had been 2, and then they kept happening, you didn't know what else might be happening. And really, nobody did. Imagine you're in a classroom and your teacher, your nominal responsible adult, is trying to provide a little normalcy and reassurance and they don't know what's going on, either. After, I think it was watching the hate bloom. Someone in the next office was on the phone to a colleague in the World Trade Center and I heard him say he's bloody hung up on me. I had just seen the news about the first plane on Ananova, old news website. I didn't know what to say to him. Then we went to a nearby bar to watch the news in the city of London. At one point the news said there was a plane coming into London that they couldn't make contact with. The 3 or 4 minutes of not knowing whether to stay where I was near big potential targets or go to the train station was possibly the weirdest of my life. Total dislocation from normality whilst watching the horror on the TV. I was just a kid when it happened. All the teachers were freaking out and running to other rooms whispering. Once my class turned the TV on, just a couple of minutes of stunned silence later we saw another plane hit the towers. We watched it for a little while before the principal decided maybe it wasn't for the best that a bunch of elementary schoolers watched that. So we turned it off and went back to lessons. The entire rest of the day, I kept imagining a plane slamming into our school building, even living a half-dozen states away in a small town. I didn't understand the scope of what was going on, and the adults decided after we'd seen it all to stop answering any questions or talk about it at all. Waiting online at Bellevue Hospital on the east side of NYC to give blood or volunteer, seeing the ghostly parade of folks who made it out, covered in dust and ash, walking up from downtown, and finally being turned away because they weren't finding enough survivors to need our help. Those alive and old enough to remember during 9/11, well, frick me if that didn't make me feel old. Here's story 3. What crazy shit happened in 2001 which got overshadowed by the 9th of November? They caught the Green River Killer, the most prolific serial killer in the USA, a few weeks after. If 9/11 had not happened, I believe this would have been the major news event of the year. He killed for decades. It was discovered that the McDonald's Monopoly game had been rigged by an insider for years and all the largest prizes were funneled to his personal friends as well as the Gambino crime family. The trial for this fraud started on September 10, 2001, so pretty much all news coverage was overshadowed by the 9th of November. The massacre of royal family of Nepal. The killing of Henryk Siwiak, a person who was murdered in NYC on the 9th of November. Not properly investigated because law enforcement was diverted to the terror attacks. The day before the 9th of November, George Carlin taped a comedy special titled, "I Kinda Like It When a Lot of People Die." It never saw the light of day. On Sunday the 9th of September, 2001, 60 Minutes aired an interview with Anne Heche in which she proclaimed her ability to communicate telepathically with faraway space aliens, or maybe interdimensional beings, don't remember the details. It was the main focus of every late-night show's monologue on Monday. Never mentioned again by Tuesday for obvious reasons. Just a few weeks after the attacks on September 11th, a passenger aircraft crashed in suburban Queens, New York, killing 260 people on board. This event coincided with the aftermath of 9/11, so naturally people assumed it was a second wave of attacks. Michael Jackson gave 2 shows in New York, together with his brothers. That was on September 7th and on September 10th. That's why I was in New York on the 9th of November. And on the 15th of September, I had to board a plane to get back home to Germany. My wife died a couple of weeks earlier. Not really big news to most people, but was some crazy shit for me. And her, I guess. On the very same morning the Concorde made its first flight with passengers since being grounded the year before. Commercial flights would resume a couple months later, but it was doomed. There was a slump in air travel and supposedly a significant number of Concorde customers died in the World Trade Center. Forrest Gump sequel was about to be greenlit, but 9/11 happened and they never revived the project because it seemed too ducked up to do. Executed what's his fucking face from the Oklahoma City bombings. The 2001 crisis in Argentina was an economic, social, and political catastrophe caused by unsustainable external debt, a collapsed convertibility model, and years of corruption and adjustment. It ended with the country in default, the famous Corralito that blocked savings, looting, repression, and 5 presidents in less than 2 weeks. I was 4 years old and it was my mom's birthday. People were crying because their homes and workplaces were being looted. People were standing guard on the roofs of houses with guns. Aaliyah died in a plane crash just a couple weeks prior. She was only 22. Also infuriating given it was a completely preventable death. The Chandra Levi disappearance and ensuing media circus around Gary Condit. Locally, there was a pretty decent-sized earthquake on the evening of September 9th under Beverly Hills. Here's story 4. No matter how beloved they are in public, what celebrity do you think is up to no good? I used to love Oprah. She always felt so wise and comforting, like everyone's mom or something. After the Hawaii thing, I can't help but feel like something's off. Like, she shows up with cameras during a literal tragedy, owns a ton of land there, and then asks regular people to donate when she's a billionaire. It just feels kinda performative, you know. Her vibe feels more like a brand now than real compassion. Katy Perry. But karma decided to come for her ass and continues to run her over in a way that should happen to way more of them. I think most of them are up to no good. Probably the 30 Seconds to Mars guy. Draft dodger Ted Nugent, but he now claims to be a flag waver. He proudly pooped in his pants at his draft physical and bragged about it at the time. Hez from my generation and my hometown, he's a POS but knows how to play guitar. He also adopted a 17-year-old girl to have intimacy with. Leonardo DiCaprio. I can't explain it, but when I read this question, that was the first name that popped into my head. It just makes sense. Not specific, but I'm convinced one billionaire at least is an active serial killer. Mr. Beast. My suspicions were only further confirmed after I watched Beast Games. It's so ***ing dystopian. Adam Levin, definitely spelled the last name wrong. My family member was recently on a TV show that had him on it. She just turned 20. In fear of her somehow someway getting in trouble, I won't say too much, but he's not a good man and all of the men in my family want to fight him. The more I hear about this Germany's dark leader fellow, the less I care for him. Jay-Z and Beyoncé were involved in the Diddy stuff. Probably won't come out, just like how the Epstein listers are safe. Money talks. Jonah Hill. I get the odd sense that there is this deeply hate-filled, angry, petty person locked up inside him. He may be lovely, but his vibe puts me off. Ryan Seacrest has always given me the worst vibe. Will Smith all the way. He was an idol to me with Prince of Bel-Air and MIB. Kim Kardashian. This might seem like an obvious choice. In the past I was indifferent about her. But lately she has been giving bad vibes. Her affiliation with Tesla products, hanging out with Lauren Sanchez and Ivanka, being very quiet during the past presidential election. I think she is fine with oligarchs as long as she's included, and I think her prison reform stuff is BS. Here's story 5. What are the first words you say when you wake up? Good morning baby girl, oh big stretch, me to my dog every morning. Mike Mungahaha, accompanied by aggressive stretching. Okay fuckers, I'll feed you, I have cats, if that wasn't obvious. You're on my arm. Granted, it's a small cell. I turn to my wife and tell her I love her before getting up. Frick off cat, it's not food time yet. I scream because I see someone in the room. Then I realize it's my reflection, and I scream even more. Frick. Oh. Sigh, why? Oh god, no. No. Insert gaspings, weird noises, and body ache noises here. Grab a brush and put a little makeup on. Well, that sleep wasn't satisfying. Usually it's the name of whichever cat is on the bed. My first audible sound doesn't come from my mouth. Goddammit, I didn't die in my sleep. Before I moved, it was a frick. Now that I moved and I'm in a place I enjoy being, it's alrighty, here we go. Frick. Cramp. Cramp. Fuck, shit. That wraps it up. Alright folks, follow for more stories with Frank.